Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. It's Season 3. Come and join the Boob Talk family as we discuss the issues breast cancer and other cancer survivors face. Come along on our journey. We are survivors. Welcome to Boob Talk. I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Thank you for joining me this evening. May is National Mental Health Awareness Month, and I believe that during the past 2 years, a lot of us have been dealing with mental health issues, especially fear and anxiety from the pandemic. Maybe you've had cancer or some other illness. You've got issues going on with work or your finances or a host of other reasons. And tonight, our return special guest is Christi Nelson, breast cancer survivor and founder of Think Outside the Boob. And she's going to discuss how we can work through our fears. Christi, welcome back to Boob Talk.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be back.
So glad to have you. So I was just discussing in our intro, Christi, I know a lot of us have been struggling, dealing with issues, fear and anxiety, especially as cancer survivors, just from the reoccurrence, thinking about reoccurrence of cancer whenever we go to get screened or have scans. I know we have a lot of fear and anxiety, and just everyone in general, I think, during this time of COVID and the pandemic, and now the economy, now the war with Ukraine and Russia, I think, people are just in a state of anxiety and fear. And so I thought it would be a good topic for us to discuss. And so I just wanted to ask you, I know that you have a program, Think Outside the Boob, and I just wanted to ask you, what are some of the ways that you think we can work through our fear?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking it. I too have been writing. I have a newsletter I send out every other week, and the past month or so, I've been writing about fear a lot myself. And you know what? It's funny. I actually said I'm not sure if it's because I feel vulnerable about the world opening back up, or because of the heavy loss. There's been a heavy loss in the metastatic breast cancer community as of late. But all I know is that I've had this sense of urgency, like I have to live life and I have to live it now.
Yes, me too.
And this, in my case, I feel very vulnerable. I'm worried about I feel like a sense of loss. And those are all emotions derived from fear. And, certainly in the breast cancer community, there's anxiety, there's past triggers that, things could, when you go in for a medical treatment, you might even just get triggered walking into a doctor's office. Or in the future, maybe you're afraid to plan for the future because there's just so much going on that's unknown, like you were saying, some of the world events. And, for mental health, fear can really take a toll on our mental health. It can basically keep us frozen. So I think that there are a few things we can do. And in my program, Think Outside the Boob, there is a whole module called Calm Your Fears. In particular, it's called Use Nature to Calm Your Fears, because mine is a nature-based program. But I'll talk about that in a minute, how you can nurture with nature.
Okay.
But what's really worked for me in my recoveries, I'm a 3-time breast cancer survivor, and I've gone through many recoveries many times for many treatments and many procedures. And what has been a constant successful tool for me is it's actually a method called the RAIN method. I didn't create it. It was created like 20 years ago. I think a person named Michelle McDonald coined it. But I found it, I came upon it, and I've practiced it and kind of put my own spin on it. I think for breast cancer recovery and those types of fears, it's a little different because it's not necessarily an outside event. It's something that happened inside our own bodies, and so that it's a little bit heavier. But I've used it to I've used rain as a tool to help me through and kind of walk me through my fear. So RAIN it stands for recognize, accept, investigate, and nurture. And I don't know about you, but have you ever kind of been able to recognize when you're in fear? I think that's a very mental, like you have to really be mindful and pay attention. But have you ever noticed when you're in fear?
Yes. And then I would say over the last couple of years, like I was having actual like panic attacks. So then I'm yeah. So yes, I've recognized that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
that's a big one, right? So when you're able to, that's a big deal, a panic attack. And that's kind of what happens, when we feel, the problem with fear is that it's super uncomfortable. And if you're anything like me, fear feels like this bad thing, and you don't want to talk about it or think about it. You just want it to go away.
Yes.
But as you know, doing nothing won't help the fear go away. If anything, it makes it worse. It just sort of builds up, and it can get extreme, like kind of affect you in the way that you're saying, in a panic attack sort of way. And how does that feel when you have a panic attack?
Oh, it just feels like you're suffocating and like you have no control.
Mhm. Yeah, and right, you're just sitting there kind of, it's hard to breathe, and you're maybe frozen.
Your heart starts racing.
Yeah, and so that's what happens when your body gets scared. There's this whole process, right? So fear, it's born in the mind, quickly takes this physical shape. And a lot of fear after breast cancer is in the mind. It's related to worrisome thoughts about maybe the future scan results or past trauma. But your nervous system can't tell the difference between true danger and perceived danger, right? It doesn't know if there's a mountain lion in your way, or if your worry is actually a mountain lion. Your body just knows that you are in danger, you feel danger in some way, and its job is to protect you. So it reacts to your thoughts the same way it would if you were being chased by a mountain lion. And so that's when you feel those physical messages, right? The, hey, I'm in danger, that's when the brain sends out all that adrenaline and the chemicals that put your body in survival mode, right? So just like a mountain lion blocking your path, your fearful thoughts will stop you right in your tracks, and you'll feel that heart start to race, and your breathing will increase, and that's like a fight flight response, right?
Yes.
Like that breathing, you either are going to fight right now or you're going to run, and that's the truth of it, and that's the trick, is to learn. The first part is to notice when you're in fear, and then the trick is to learn how to speak your body's language, interpret the message, and use the practices to help you walk with your fear by your side. It's never going to you're not, we can't control when fear comes up. So you can't really say it's going to go away forever. I can solve all your fears and it's going to go away. But what you can do is learn to take it by the hand and walk with it and lead the way.
All right. That sounds like something interesting to learn.
Yeah.
I need help with that.
The first, I was going to put you in a state of fear. The first step is to sort of recognize your fear response and how it feels in your body. And what I usually do is play a game like, what happens, how do you feel when you get scared? What's your fear response when you hear something go bump in the night? Do you tense up? Does your jaw clench? Do you reach for your baseball bat? Or do you lay in bed and look around like you can't move? Or do you run? Like, do you just fly out the window, you know? And those are all fear responses: fight, flight, or freeze. And that's the first step in RAIN, is to recognize that you're in fear and check your body. You know, check your body to see how it's responding.
Okay.
So that's what I heard from you is, you know, you felt your heart race, you felt your breathing was heavy. So that's the first step. That's R. But to walk with it, now it gets a little harder. It's the accepting part. You know, you have to accept. That's the A in RAIN. And to do that, I mean, it's not hard, but it's something we don't want to do. It's uncomfortable. We want to get rid of it.
Right.
But actually the opposite is true. What you should do is kind of name the emotion that goes along with your fear. So right now in this state of the world, how are you feeling? You know, when you think about something that makes you scared, what is the emotion that comes up for you? Maybe it's vulnerable, maybe it's anxious, worried, angry, overwhelmed, powerless. Those are some emotions that might
sadness too sometimes.
Sadness, yes. And so that's the next part, is really just to name the emotion, accept it, and breathe, and just say, literally, in my mind, what I do is I say hello to the emotion. And I just remind myself that my body is trying to keep me safe. So,
okay.
Hello, sadness. Hello, vulnerability. Hello, anxiety. I see we're going to be hanging out together today. Like, if this is going to be present today.
Hello.
And there's no, right? It's not fun, but there's no judgment around it. It's just, it is what it is. And it doesn't mean it has to take over. It's going to be present, and I'm going to take it by the hand. I'll lead the way, right?
That's a good point.
And that
now
way
that you
you're
say
sort of,
that,
mm-hmm.
yeah, I was going to say, now that you say that, when I am aware that I'm starting to panic, I literally think to myself, okay, stop, and then I start taking deep breaths, and that usually for that particular moment helps me to calm down. So I guess that is part of my acceptance of it, right?
Absolutely. That's absolutely it. And that is the point, is when you start to do this practice and you're actually kind of taking a breath, breathing, and pinpointing, you know, you are calming your nervous system. You're calming it down. And so that is exactly what this RAIN method is doing for you. It's you know, the point is to start to calm the body's stress response down and get it kind of out of that survival mode. And that way you can move forward. So it's a kind of a reframe. You know, we're reframing it a little bit. And then what I do, part of the accepting, is, this is kind of funny, but it really helps me. So you like to breathe, and so do I. But there's one more thing, because sometimes just saying, oh, hello, anxiety, I see we'll be with, you know, together today. Like, that's fine, but it doesn't do the trick. And so the next part is literally, I have to get present. I try to be present in this moment, because a lot of our perceived danger is about the future, right? We're worried about what's going to happen, or, you know, or we're thinking about what happened in the past and triggers. It's not really, perceived danger isn't really what's happening to us right now where we are in the moment, personally, on our person. And so what I do is it's this little practice, and I ask myself, where are my feet?
Okay.
Where are my feet? I know, and it sounds really hokey, but what it does is it addresses this need to fight or flee, you know? And so if I ask myself where my feet are, I look down and I start to wiggle my toes. And as I'm wiggling, I notice that I become unfrozen. And that's that stress response. It really is fight, flight, or freeze. And so when you start to find your feet, you wiggle your toes, there you notice them becoming unfrozen. And as I do this, and as I'm doing this, I also feel my feet against the ground, and I feel them supporting me, and I remind myself that I'm supported. And I sway a little bit to sort of help my body soften and relax. And this is all just because the body's nervous system right now, when you're scared or in a place of fear, it's pumped with adrenaline. And the stress response, you can't just talk yourself out of it. Your body actually has to have some methods and some motion and some movement and, some additional tools to have the nervous system calm down, have it calm down itself. So that's the body part, is to recognize and accept and learn to walk, find your feet, reframe, and walk with the fear. Literally walk. I mean, I could start walking after I find my feet. and that keeps me in the present moment. Yeah. Yeah. It does sound funny, I know, but that's the first half of RAIN, is recognize and accept. But I feel like I'm talking a lot. Do you have any questions or anything you wanted to?
I'm listening, and I'm just learning.
Okay.
I'm here to learn.
Okay. Yeah, and the Find My Feet is something another breast cancer survivor mentioned to me to kind of keep her grounded and present, and it was this perfect way to incorporate the accept part in RAIN, the accepting your fears. You just come back to this present moment and look around, find your feet and realize where you are. And you're right now, there's no lion here. There's no, personally in this moment for me, I'm literally in my office. I'm okay, So that's the basic first half. And then we go and we dig a little deeper. And it gets a little bit harder because you do have to dig deep. And that's with the next step in RAIN, that's I for investigate. And so really what we're doing is, now that we've learned to kind of walk with fear and reframe and begin to feel more comfortable with it, we're ready. You're ready. Once you kind of practice that, you'll be ready to investigate the messages that your mind and body are telling you when you're scared. So really, why am I scared? And that's the investigation.
Okay.
And right now, you let fear remind you. So there's a nugget here. So this is hard work, the investigate, because it gets really uncomfortable. You have to, really think about why. But the nugget is that when you figure out the why, you figure out the truth behind your fear. And that actually can turn into kind of your greatest wish in life. Like, it really helps you start to really live your life.
Oh.
And so knowing that
work?
I know. Knowing that kind of gets you through the hard part. So, all right, so let's play. So, my son just came home. That's okay. So right now, you let fear remind you of what you don't want. But once you start to investigate, you'll be able to uncover the truth behind your fear and let it remind you of what you do want. So here's how we do it. The first thing we have to do is, in order to do this, because it gets a little uncomfortable and there will be some resistance, you want to establish some safety around this, around yourself. Like, you're going to go into a state, you realize you're in perceived danger, and you're going to dig deep. So just remember, what you want to do is establish safety. And we do that with a couple of methods. Well, to establish safety, I call it the even if game. And basically the point is you ask yourself, okay, what am I struggling with right now? So, this is your fearful scenario. What am I struggling with right now? Do you have something or?
Well, you know what? I was just thinking of, let me give an example of every time I have to go get an MRI every 6 months, was starting to have anxiety and panic attacks, now to the point where I have to take an Ativan just to calm myself down so I can get the scan done. So, so that's an example for me.
Okay, so that's the fearful scenario. So what I'm thinking that you're scared of is the results. Maybe is that like your okay. Yeah. So like the fear of recurrence and the going to get the scan is reminding you of all of these things, like the potential. Okay. Well, I'm really, first of all, as an aside, like I'm really glad you brought up medication, because when we're, mental health is a stigma still for so many people, and it's totally, I want to put it out there that, when you break an arm or you have something that's, wrong, or it's not feeling well, you have a stomach ache, you go to the doctor and you get checked out and you get some medicine if you need it. You get some help. And so even with mental health, if you find that you're really, really struggling and you've tried all that and, you still need help, I'm so glad, Cynthia, that you went and you have a prescription to help you for when you need it, and
I
I'm
never
really
in my life thought I would, because before I had cancer, I was fine. I never had an issue with feeling claustrophobic or anything. But after I had cancer, I started having the panic and anxiety.
Yeah, and same here. I don't even think, I took like a multivitamin. That was the only thing I ever took before I got cancer. But same, I came out of treatment and I was literally frozen. I was in a state of freeze, survival mode, state of freeze. And I wasn't catatonic, but I would sit at the breakfast table for a good 3 hours, just kind of unable to really function. And that's when my husband was like, Christi, very gently was like, it really doesn't have to be this hard. It's okay, even if it's temporary, to go get some help if you need it, and it was a difficult conversation and one that led to me going to therapy, and I have a prescription for Zoloft. So it's helpful, and I'm functional, and I'm, over time my Zoloft has decreased the milligrams, but it's definitely something that's important to address. And you don't have to go it alone, So I just wanted to put that out there, especially for Mental Health Week. I think that's super important.
And I think that a lot of that has to do with, we are just thinking that if we admit we have a problem, that somehow we are a failure, and that's not true.
Exactly that. That's exactly right. Yeah, like somehow we mess. But that's what I was trying to say. When it's like when you break your arm, you don't think of yourself as a failure. You just go and get a cast.
Right.
You can't help this. And honestly, there's so much trauma that goes unsaid with a diagnosis, and there's so much treatment that really could. Personally, I mean, I'm not a therapist or a neuroscientist, but I sometimes wonder if our brain chemistry gets a little altered from chemotherapy.
Definitely. I talked in my previous show about chemo brain, and just how I was struggling functioning. And it's just now within my 6 years that I'm really starting to come out of it and be able to focus and remember things, when, like, for the last 5 years, I was struggling and was afraid to say anything to anybody out of fear of embarrassment. And then I remember, I was having difficulty at work, concentrating, focusing. And then at one point, I finally just had to tell my boss, hey, I'm dealing with chemo brain and I'm having a hard time, just so you know. So it was like, It felt like, it was like a hidden secret. And I didn't want to share or tell anybody because I felt embarrassed.
Wow. And I'm so glad that you represented yourself and spoke up, because it's a medical thing, chemo brain. I wasn't thinking about it, but of course. And so to the point of, medication can certainly help with that. So it's always an option, and talking to a therapist or a counselor of some sort is always super helpful. You don't have to go it alone. This brain method is something that is a tool I use in addition to medical professionals, right? It's a supplementary tool that helps me on a daily basis. It's a practice. Thank you for saying that. So, because I want that to be noted. This is not like hey, use this tool, go it alone, suck it up, do it yourself. This is just
right.
a practice, and please, seek medical assistance and all the help you can get, all the support you need. Use all the tools. Okay, but that said, investigate. So you were talking about the fear of recurrence and getting an MRI. And investigating, when we establish safety, what we want to do is to play the scenario all the way out. And this really is just giving your brain, because this is perceived danger, right? You're going in for an MRI. You're not actually unsafe yet, right?
Right.
Physically, you are in a safe place. There's nurses around you. There's people protecting you. But it's this perceived danger. And so what you want to do is give your brain all the information it needs to get past the point of perceived danger. And that involves writing out your fearful thought or scenario, or what you're scared of. And it is a good practice to write it out. It gets the thought out of your body, out of your mind, and onto the page. And what you do is you say, I call it the even if game, because what you do is you say, well, even if that happens, what then? So This is where it's difficult, right? Even if I had a recurrence, what then? And you get detailed and you be real. And it's super okay if this is hard and all the emotions come out. This is the point, actually, is to process this and not keep it down. And so you might say, well, then I'll have to go and get a baseline scan, and then, okay, even if you have to do that, well, then what then? What happens then? Well, then I'll have to, I'll get a diagnosis. Okay, what then? Then I'll have to, we're just thinking worst case scenario. So then I'll have to go through treatment again. Okay, even if you have to go through treatment again, what then? Okay, well, then I'm going to feel really sick, and I'll have to take medicine, and it will really I'll feel nauseous, it'll affect my gut. Okay, what then? And you just keep going all the way through. And at some point, believe it or not, at some point, you're going to get to the place where it is, and then I'll have to, maybe in this scenario, I'm just saying an example, and then I'll be done with treatment. And then I will have to go to physical therapy. Okay, well, if you have to do physical therapy, what happens then? Okay, well, then it's going to be range of motion exercise, and it's going to hurt, but, I'll keep going. And if you see where this is leading, what's happening is you're getting curious rather than getting scared. Like you start to kind of come out the other side of the fear by just playing out this even if scenario. And
that makes sense.
It will, and it isn't fun, it isn't comfortable. But here's where, so that's the establishing safety part, where you're just kind of working it all the way, playing it all the way out. Once you do that, then you get to even dig deeper. But this step is everything. So this is the golden nugget.
Okay.
So then now that you've kind of established some safety, you've worked out, you've kind of given your brain a little bit of all the information it needs to get past the point of perceived danger, because now you're kind of looking around going, okay, I'm actually here writing in my journal. I've got my pen in my hand and I'm writing it down. You realize this is perceived. Then you can dig deeper, and you're feeling safe now. So then you can dig even deeper, and you can write down why that fearful thought is so bad. So why is it so bad for you? Is there like one or, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons. Is there one on the top of your head, like why that would be?
I don't want to have cancer again and go through all that again.
Okay. So I'm scared that I'm going to have it, and I'm going to have to go through all of that again. And so then you write down 3 reasons why it would be so bad that you would have to go through that again.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to do
These
this
are my
right
top
now.
3 words. My top 3 words: being sick, and being sick.
Okay. That is fine. That makes it. It's not easy. That's the wrong description, but that's the main reason. So I don't want to feel sick, right?
Yeah.
So now you know the truth behind your fear. Like, I don't want to feel sick. And so your greatest wish in this case is to do those things that make you feel good. You flip it. So if you say, like, I don't want to feel sick, then what you do is now you know the truth. After you flip it, your greatest wish, you would write, I want to feel good. And so now you know you want to do things that will make you feel good. Now that's a vague one, but that's when you can start to get a little more descriptive. And that would be that's the next step, actually, is the N for nurture. So what I had written for my scenario was the same thing, fear of recurrence. I think it's probably the number one fear in breast cancer patients. And for me, it was, it's so bad for me because I won't get to see my kids grow up. And for me, the number one reason why that would be so bad, well, one of them would have been I won't get enough time with them. And so if I flip it, it's I want to spend time with them. I want to spend time with my kids. Okay. And so that's great because now I can have an action step.
Yes.
And that's nurture. So nurture is where you take action towards your greatest wish. And this is where you get to live. You get to live your life and move forward in your recovery. So when you take action, you're taking action and you're responding to the fear you feel, and you're responding to it directly. And I've seen you do this, Cynthia, online. I know what you do to feel.
Yes, I've been trying. I didn't even realize that I was doing rain.
And the one thing that came to mind when I thought of you was all the beach pictures.
Yes.
Right?
Nature.
Oh yeah, and you're going. I just see you in the sun, just like soaking up the sun and just enjoying. And clearly, that makes you feel good.
Yes, it does.
So what happens? Yeah, I know. I believe you were with family or something, but I feel like I see you in Florida often. I don't know.
Yeah,
right?
I was doing that like every month.
Yes. I know. Okay, so it's not me. You really are, like, that's your happy place right now.
Yes.
Awesome. So, so for you, you don't want to feel sick. You flip it. That's your greatest wish is you want to feel good. And so the action step is to respond and do something detailed, So you might say, you might have had something written out and then you flipped it. And so now it's time to nurture it. So you you take action and write down how you're going to take action. And you want to be detailed. So I will take action toward this by going to the beach once a month in Florida. I don't know.
Oh, that sounds good. Yes.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And for me, I wrote, I will take action toward this by spending more time with my kids And I was very specific and wrote, I'm going to play games and take walks with them at least once a week, starting today at 7 p.m. So,
great.
Yeah, it's important to be detailed so that you have so that you do it, so that you have this path to move forward and really start living your life. And what that is you're finding the truth behind your fear. You're letting your fear remind you of what you do want instead of what you don't want.
Right.
And right?
Never thought of it like that until you just said that. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, who's my uncle? My uncle is a guru. And what does he say? He says, worry. He says it's a very similar thing. He says, worry is meditating on what you don't want. Meditate on what you do want. So
I'm definitely going to work on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so first you write it down. You have your detailed action that you have written down. Then you nurture. Taking action. Then take care of yourself. And these can go hand in hand. For you, it sounds like it does with the beach. So taking care of yourself, the way I use this and interpret it is to nurture with nature. So, if you get into nature or create some sort of nature experience at home, even if it's watching, what's the latest, National Parks movie on Netflix.
Yeah, I have to watch that.
Yeah. A 15-minute nature experience is going to start the calming process in the body. But after 30 minutes, there really is dosage, and there's science. There's great science, actually, to back this now. After 30 minutes, stress levels drop, hormones begin to balance, like adrenaline, and your body begins, and cortisol, your stress hormones, and your body begins to calm and rest. So this is when the fearful thoughts, they go by the wayside, and hopefulness comes in, and your mood lifts, and, even creativity even begins to spark. So I don't know about you, but probably when you're at the beach, you're probably feeling pretty good.
Yes. And you know what just made me think about? When I also go to have my mammogram in the actual room, they have a slide on the wall, and it's showing slides of nature, of the beach. So, they're recognizing that this would possibly have a calming effect if we are feeling anxiety when we're going to get a mammogram. So I just thought about that.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. There's science around, oh my God, hold on. My cat's laying on my computer. Okay. Yeah, there's science around how even pictures of nature will help you heal faster and with less pain. So I don't know about after a mammogram, you're not like you're in the hospital, but certainly there is merit to pictures of nature and scenes. And they do actually, the green views and blue actually help your stress levels drop. So there's merit to that for sure. So yeah, that's when the fearful thoughts start to go by the wayside. Especially if you're at the beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my happy place too. So I'm really I was just
I know.
there.
I see you are a lover of nature, girl. Always out hiking, doing all kinds of things. I'm like, where does she get all this energy?
Oh, well, no, I do it. Well, not no, but I'm out. I make a point to hike like 2 or 3 times a week, but there's always breaks between. So yeah, don't misinterpret that. And sometimes it's not hiking. Sometimes it's walking and sitting and noticing and, digging my feet in the sand. It's not necessarily always, let's do the summit, It's not always that. It's not always a workout, it's a lot of it is just being present and having an experience, a nature-based experience. And I take my time. I listen to my body. If I'm tired, it's going to be like, I might I went camping at the beach last weekend, and so I walked along the sand, and then I came back and I just sat in a chair and read, for a long time.
Sounds very relaxing.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not, it's not always like, hey everyone, come hike 8 miles. No, it's not going to be like that. It can be, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be that way. It really is more about the therapeutic nature experience. And and so that actually is sort of the third part of nurturing, which is, again, responding to the fear you feel in your body. So if you still feel like your body hasn't quite, it needs a little more help, you certainly in nature can return to the present moment pretty easily just by looking around at things, the leaves, the fractals of, the sun patterns in the leaves or the ocean waves or whatever it is. It really brings you back pretty easily, noticing colors and scents and sounds. But another way to do that again is to find your feet. So again, kind of full circle, returning to the present moment, reminding your body it's not in danger, and just finding your feet.
Where are my feet?
Where are my feet? Yeah. And that's a lot. I was going to say that's it, but that's kind of a lot. But with RAIN, recognize, accept, investigate, and nurture. You're exploring your fear closely, but it's you taking it by the hand, and you're walking with it, but you're leading the way, and you're finding the truth behind it so that you can uncover your greatest wish and move forward. Literally walk with your feet and move forward.
Yes, and that also, that's exercise in itself. So you could be out walking in nature.
Absolutely, 100%. Oh yeah, I mean it really does go hand in hand.
Goes full circle.
Full circle. And I think that that it all plays a part. Being able to recognize and then naming that emotion and then investigating your fear. I think that's the biggest step. But and the flipping it to find the truth really gets you to be active and living life to its fullest. It almost kind of gives you permission. As soon as you flip it and find that truth behind your fear, it's like, okay, let's go. Like, I'm going to take action, and it really gets us, especially as breast cancer survivors, to, we're all trying to heal, but we also know I can't speak for everyone, but I feel like life is short, and I really do want to make the most of it. Do
everything I can, right.
And it's hard to do when you're still healing. This allows you a way to do that. You're making a small plan and you can move forward with it. So, and it really just helps you enjoy life, in that way. So
great. And now I just wanted to ask, I know we've talked about this method for cancer survivors, those going through recovery, but you can also use this if you're not a cancer survivor. Just, say, for example, this is also one of my issues, that I get anxiety when it comes to my workload. So I have also struggling with that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be medically related, right, to use this method?
No, in fact, and absolutely not. Like I use it for that because that's what I'm dealing with. But I don't even think that I actually don't know the history of the RAIN method, but I'm pretty sure it's not. I don't think it originated from like a breast cancer perspective. So I really think it's any fear and any stressor. It certainly the body is going to react to perceived fear, to fear and perceived danger the same way. It can be paying your bills. It can be your workload. It can be as heavy as a scan, but your body doesn't know the difference. Your body thinks mountain lion in my house.
Yeah.
Robber in my house,
Right.
So the whole point
danger.
Of it, yeah, danger. So the whole point of this RAIN method is to work with that, work with your body, get out of perceived danger, really address the fear, and then, find the truth behind it. So yeah, it can be for anything.
Great. Christi, thank you so much for coming on to the show to help us discuss the RAIN method so we can try to get through and work through our fear. And as you say, walk with the fear. And I just would love to have you come back on the show and talk about other aspects of your program. And just lastly, before we go, I wanted you to tell our listeners about how they can get in touch with you or how they can become involved in your program, your recovery program, Think Outside the Boob.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I'm very active on Instagram, and you can find me there at Christi_ThinkOutside_Nelson. My first name is spelled Christi. But I'm also active on Facebook, and I'm at Think Outside the Boob, or you can find me at thinkoutsidetheboob.com. And that's where, all of those places, you can sign up for my bi-monthly newsletter, and I am launching my program at the end of May, at the end of the month. So if you're if you're subscribing to my newsletter, you'll get the first announcements, before, like kind of the early bird announcements for that. So I encourage everyone to sign up.
Great.
Yeah, I'm excited. So thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it was really fun.
Thank you, Christi, and hopefully we will talk again soon.
Absolutely, Cynthia. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Boob Talk, and I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Tonight, as part of National Mental Health Awareness Month, we discussed fear and how we can work through it, and as Christi said, we can walk with it. Christi Nelson was our special guest, breast cancer survivor and founder of Think Outside the Boob, a breast cancer recovery program. She discussed the RAIN method to begin working on her fear, which is recognize, accept, investigate, and nurture. We are all in this together, and we can do this together. And let's not let fear dictate our lives and hold us back. Until next time, God bless. You have been listening to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. Follow us on all podcasting platforms and on Facebook at Boob Talk Podcast Group and Instagram at Cynthia L. Rogers, Boob Talk Podcast. Remember, never give up hope.